Welcome to Second Chances with Claire. I opened my dream restaurant and invited my entire family to the grand opening. Not one of them showed up. Not my mom. Not my dad. Not even my brother, Daniel, the one who swore he'd always be in my corner. They were all at his office promotion party instead. A backyard barbecue with folding chairs and paper plates, while I stood alone under soft lights and polished wood, waiting for faces that never walked through the door. My name is Claire Mason. I'm 32, and if you think you know how this story ends, stay tuned, because this isn't about food. It's about the moment you realize the people you'd starve for wouldn't even cross the street to feed your soul. The kitchen still smelled like roasted thyme and lemon butter. The candles I'd placed on every table still flickered. And the playlist, the one I made from the songs Mom used to hum while cooking, kept looping on speakers no one heard. I stared at my phone. No calls, no texts. No, we're running late, or can't wait to see you. Just one notification. Daniel's Instagram story. Promotion vibes, the caption read. And there they were. My entire family, smiling, clinking glasses, holding a cake that said "to bigger things." I had spent 2 years building this restaurant from nothing, and they couldn't be bothered to show up for 2 hours. So when my dad finally texted, "We need to talk about the restaurant," I didn't ask what he wanted to discuss. I already knew. He was thinking about the family discount, the unspoken tab, the part where they get free meals for life just for sharing my last name. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed 8 words that would change everything. Effective immediately, the restaurant is closed to family. No reservations, no discounts, no exceptions. 20 minutes later, my phone lit up. 17 missed calls. And then, a knock at the back door. Of course, it was Daniel. He stood there in his designer blazer, smelling like expensive whiskey and even more expensive excuses. "Figured you'd want a slice," he said, holding out a box of leftover cake. Trying to smile, like nothing had happened. I didn't move, didn't speak. "Look, Claire, we didn't think the opening was that big of a deal," he started. "Dad said it was more of a soft launch vibe." I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. "You went to his party, Daniel." "Not mine. I sent hand-delivered invites. I texted Mom 3 times. I made your favorite dessert, caramel bread pudding. And it sat untouched for 5 hours." He shifted, looking down at the box. "People got busy." "No," I said quietly, the words sharper than any knife in my kitchen. "People got lazy. They thought I'd always be the backup plan." I walked past him and tossed the trash bag I'd been holding into the dumpster. "Claire, come on. It's not that deep." But it was. It had always been deep. From the way Dad called me the creative one, like it was a consolation prize, to the way Mom compared my culinary school dream to Daniel's business degree. They wanted me small, something they could explain away. Daniel followed me back toward the door. "I think Dad wants to invest now. He sees potential. He asked me to talk to you, and there it was. Not guilt, not support, just business. Tell Dad the restaurant's fully funded," I said, calm and cold. "And the investor bought exclusive rights to my loyalty." Daniel blinked. "What does that mean?" I smiled. "It means you're late, and I don't do leftovers." I walked inside and locked the door behind me. On the other side, I could hear him exhale, and then walk away. The next morning, I changed the locks. Not just at the restaurant, but at my apartment too. I'd spent years letting them treat my space like a revolving door. "Claire, can we crash for a few nights? Can I store my stuff in your garage? Can I borrow your car until Monday?" And every time I'd said yes, because somewhere deep down, I thought being useful was the same as being loved. But love doesn't skip your biggest moment. Love doesn't shrug off your dreams. Love shows up, so I made it official. A sign on the restaurant door read, "Due to overwhelming support, we are now reservations only. No walk-ins accepted, even if we share DNA." By noon, the photo of me standing beneath that sign hit local foodie blogs. By evening, it had gone viral. Comments flooded in. "This woman is my hero. Boundaries taste better than betrayal. Tell Daniel to eat a slice of humble pie." Meanwhile, my phone buzzed nonstop. Mom called 5 times and left one voicemail. "Claire, this is childish. We made a mistake, but this public tantrum is making things worse." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the door for a couple from Colorado who had seen the story online. "We canceled another reservation just to eat here," the woman said with a smile. As I led them to their table, I caught my reflection in the front window. I didn't look bitter. I didn't look broken. I looked free. And behind me, the restaurant buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and second chances I chose, not ones I was guilted into giving. 2 days later, my father showed up. Not at the restaurant. He wouldn't risk the cameras. He came to my apartment. "Let's be adults about this," he said when I opened the door. He looked tired, like a man losing control of a story he thought he'd written. "Your mother's upset. Daniel's confused. We all are. You want to talk?" I said, blocking the doorway. "Talk here." "This is ridiculous," he sighed. "We're not enemies." "No," I said. "You're just people who forget I exist unless I'm paying the bill or cooking the meal." He flinched. "I was going to help you, you know. I was looking into financing." "You mean you wanted equity?" I replied. "Control. Don't be paranoid." I reached behind me and grabbed a folder off the console. "Here's the deed. The restaurant is solely in my name. The LLC, the recipes, the brand, all mine." He blinked. "You got a lawyer?" "I got a team," I said. "Funny what happens when you stop waiting for permission to shine." He looked down, then muttered, "This will come back to bite you, Claire." "You're burning bridges." I nodded. "Then I guess I'll learn to swim." I closed the door. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I needed their name to succeed. Because mine, Claire Mason, was finally worth something. 3 days passed. Business was booming. The reservation list was full for 2 weeks straight. Strangers left notes on the check that said, "You inspire me." A woman hugged me in the middle of dinner service and whispered, "I wish I had your courage." For the first time, I thought maybe, just maybe, I was free of them. Then the storm hit. It started with 1 bad Yelp review, then 2, then 6, all in under an hour. Food was cold. Owner stared at us like we didn't belong. Staff was rude. We felt unwelcome. There was only one problem. None of those names were in the reservation log. And cold food? In my kitchen? Impossible. Daniel's words echoed in my head. "We're not enemies." No. Maybe not enemies. But saboteurs? Absolutely. I knew exactly what this was. A smear campaign. One-star warfare. The kind of digital vandalism that leaves no fingerprints, just poison. I didn't panic. I prepared. I called my lawyer. Then I called Sophia Reyes, a food columnist who'd once written a glowing feature on my restaurant called A Place with a Heartbeat. "Claire," she said after reading the fake reviews, "this looks coordinated." "Want to go on record?" "Yes," I said. "I'm done staying silent." The next morning, the article dropped. From fork to fire, how a rising chef's own family tried to break her. It wasn't revenge. It was truth. Screenshots, dates, contradictions. Even a quote from one of my servers. Her dad came in last week and threatened to buy her out if she didn't come to her senses. By noon, the piece exploded. Comments poured in. "Imagine being this jealous of your daughter's success. Families like this create warriors. She's not the black sheep, she's the phoenix." And for the first time in years, I felt the weight on my chest start to lift. That night, as I was cleaning up after the dinner rush, a woman walked in quietly and handed me an envelope. "I came here just to tip you $1,000, she whispered. "For standing up," I cried in the walk-in fridge. Not because I was weak, but because I finally realized I wasn't alone. The world had seen what they did, and they chose me. But the next move wasn't mine, it was hers. Her name was Natalie, Daniel's fiancée. She showed up at closing, no reservation, just a nervous smile and a phone clutched in her shaking hands. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. "Please, just a minute." I almost said no, but something in her eyes, guilt maybe, held me there. We sat across from each other in the last booth by the window. She wrapped her hands around a coffee cup I hadn't poured yet. "I didn't know," she whispered. I didn't know how far they were going. I stayed silent. They created a WhatsApp group, she continued. Your mom, Daniel, Aunt Linda, even your cousin Mark, they called it Project Reset. My chest tightened. What was the plan? To pressure you into selling, or failing, she swallowed. Daniel said it was just to bring you back to reality, but after the article went viral, they turned on each other. Your mom blamed Daniel. Daniel blamed your dad. It's chaos. I leaned back. Why are you telling me this? Tears welled in her eyes. Because they dragged me into it. And because I don't want to marry someone who treats his sister like that. She slid her phone across the table. Screenshots, messages, voice notes, proof. It was all there. Every cruel word, every sabotage plan, every calculated attempt to break me. If you want to go public, Natalie said, her voice trembling, you have my blessing. I didn't respond. Not yet, because revenge isn't about noise. It's about timing. And this wasn't about getting even. It was about getting free. Thank you, I said quietly. You just gave me everything I need, and I meant it. Because sometimes, the last card you need comes from someone ready to leave the table. The headlines hit at 9:12 a.m. 2 days later. Chef Claire Mason's family caught plotting sabotage. Leaked messages confirm. I hadn't spoken to the press. I didn't have to. Natalie leaked the group chat herself, with a single caption. I won't be marrying into this family. It detonated. Screenshots painted the full picture. She's too full of herself. Cut her supplier discounts. Make her beg to come back. The backlash was instant. Hashtags spread across Twitter and TikTok. Stand with Claire trended for 3 days straight. People who'd been silent for years. Old friends. Former coworkers, even neighbors, and spoke up. She was always the one carrying everyone. They used her until she had nothing left. This is why she shines. She fought alone. By noon, my reservation list was booked for 6 weeks. At 2 p.m., my landlord called. Claire, he said, I'm extending your lease for 5 more years. Rent locked. You're the pride of this street. At 3:17 p.m., Daniel texted. I didn't know Mom saved that stuff. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen, then set the phone down. I didn't respond. I was too busy folding napkins, tasting sauce, adjusting a crooked picture on the wall, building the future they swore I couldn't. At 5 p.m., a woman walked in wearing a navy blazer and red lipstick. I'm from the Food Chronicle, she said. We're doing a feature, 10 chefs who survived the fire. I blinked. Survived? She smiled. You're not just a chef, Claire. You're a revolution. That night, after the last table left and the lights dimmed, I stood barefoot in the empty dining room, wine glass in hand. The air didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt clean. And tomorrow, I knew, I'd start planning something even bigger. Because the best revenge isn't survival, it's success, served cold, plated beautifully, and seasoned with silence. 1 year. That's how long it had been since my family tried to bury my dream under shame, sabotage, and 1-star reviews. 365 days since I stood alone in an empty restaurant, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. But a lot can change in a year. I had a wait list stretching 3 months out. My sauces were being bottled and sold in boutique stores. A travel show had even featured me as one of America's top 10 self-made chefs. Every night, I walked through my kitchen and felt it. Not the ghost of who I used to be, but the presence of who I'd become. Stronger, sharper, untouchable. Then, on a Tuesday morning in April, an envelope arrived. Gold foil, heavy paper, my family's crest embossed on the front. I didn't need to open it to know what it was. You are cordially invited to the engagement brunch of Daniel Mason and Natalie Carter. I laughed. Out loud, alone. The same family who hadn't shown up for the most important day of my life now wanted me to show up for theirs. The same people who called me arrogant, who plotted to watch me fail, were now hoping I'd stand beside them for a photo they could post online to look united. I didn't RSVP. I didn't even read the rest. I put the invitation in the blender, watched it turn to confetti, then opened my laptop and finalized something that had been in the works for months. Mason's Table, second location. This one wasn't just another restaurant. It was a statement, a historic brick building downtown, exposed beams, skylights, a rooftop herb garden, a kitchen twice the size of my first. And the best part? Every member of my new staff had been overlooked by someone once, just like me. A single mom who'd been rejected from culinary school. A dishwasher who'd been told he'd never be more. A pastry chef who'd aged out of entry-level positions. We built something sacred. Not just a restaurant, a refuge. A space where dignity was part of the menu. The day of the ribbon cutting, a crowd gathered outside. Cameras, reporters, curious locals. And in the front row, Sophia, the journalist who'd written my very first story. "Claire," she said, mic in hand, "what would you say to your family now?" I smiled, slow and deliberate. Nothing. They had asked for explanations, apologies, second chances. I gave them silence, because they didn't need answers. They needed accountability, and I had nothing left to prove. That night, after the grand opening crowd left, I stayed behind in the kitchen, apron dusted with flour, hands deep in dough. Around me, my team laughed and chopped and sang along to a playlist I didn't have to make. The low hum of hope filled the air, steady, unbreakable. Then the moment happened. A woman walked in alone. She looked nervous, like she'd almost turned around at the door. "Are you Claire Mason?" she asked. "I am," she swallowed hard. "My daughter wants to be a chef, but she's afraid she'll never be good enough." I handed her a menu. "Tell her this," I said. "They said the same thing to me." Her eyes softened, and she nodded. And when she left, I realized something. This was the real victory. Not the sold-out nights, not the magazine covers. It was moments like that, quiet, human, deeply personal. The revenge was never about destroying them. It was about proving they were never the ones holding the keys. But peace has a way of attracting the very chaos you thought you'd left behind. 2 weeks after the second restaurant opened, Daniel called. I didn't answer. Then he emailed. "I'd really like to talk. Things are complicated." I ignored that too. Then, one night, just as I was locking up, he showed up in person. "Claire," he said, hands stuffed into his pockets. "Please, just 5 minutes." I didn't invite him in. I didn't offer him a seat. I just crossed my arms and waited. "I messed up," he said. "We all did, but things are different now. Mom's been sick. Dad lost a lot of money in a bad investment. Everyone's falling apart." I stared at him, expressionless. "And you came here because we need your help." There it was. The truth stripped of excuses, not remorse, not regret, need. "I helped you my entire life," I said quietly. "I showed up, I shared, I sacrificed, and every single time you asked for more. This is different." "No," I said, shaking my head. "It's exactly the same," he sighed. "I don't know how to fix it." "You can't," I said simply. "Because this isn't a broken relationship. It's a boundary, and boundaries don't need fixing. They need respect." Daniel looked like he wanted to say something else, but the words never came. He turned to leave, then hesitated at the door. "For what it's worth," he said softly, "I'm proud of you." I didn't respond, not because I didn't hear him, but because I didn't need his pride anymore. That weekend, a national food network reached out. They wanted me to host a 6-episode series, part cooking show, part documentary, about chefs who built their dreams from nothing. I said yes. A month later, I was standing in front of a camera crew, lights flooding the kitchen, explaining how to make my signature rosemary citrus marinade. And as the director counted down, something clicked. I wasn't cooking for validation anymore. I wasn't chasing approval. I was leading. The same girl who once stood in an empty restaurant wondering if she was enough was now teaching millions of people how to believe they were too. Weeks passed. Then months. Seasons changed. The family drama that once consumed my thoughts was now background noise, white static, irrelevant. But deep down, I knew the story wasn't over. There was one more chapter left, one final unexpected twist waiting around the corner. And when it arrived, it would test everything I'd built. Because sometimes the hardest part of success isn't getting there. It's deciding who's still allowed to walk through the door once you do. 6 months after the second restaurant opened, I thought I had finally closed the book on my family. No more texts, no more drama, no more manipulation wrapped in fake apologies. But the past has a way of knocking when you least expect it, and it rarely shows up empty-handed. It was a rainy Thursday morning when I got the email. The subject line read, "A proposal." It was from my father. "Claire, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but please read this. We want to meet, all of us. There's something important we'd like to discuss. Please consider it one dinner. Neutral ground. Love, Dad." I stared at the screen for a long time. Every instinct in me screamed delete it, but curiosity, that old stubborn ache, kept me from hitting the trash icon. Neutral ground turned out to be a hotel restaurant downtown. Fancy enough to impress, but generic enough to feel impersonal. And there they were, all of them, already seated when I arrived. Mom, Dad, Aunt Linda, even Mark, who hadn't spoken to me in years. And Daniel, sitting beside an empty chair. Natalie's chair. "Claire," Dad said as I approached, "thank you for coming." I didn't sit right away. "You have 5 minutes." Mom reached for my hand. I pulled it back. "We've been talking," she said, "about everything that happened, about the mistakes we made." "Mistakes?" I repeated, voice steady. "That's an interesting word for sabotage, public humiliation, and betrayal." Mom looked down. "We're sorry." There was a time when those words would have shattered me. A time when hearing sorry would have been enough to make me forgive, to make me forget. But that time was gone. "Why now?" I asked. "After everything, why now?" Dad cleared his throat. "Because we need you." There it was. The truth. They weren't here because they had changed. They were here because they were desperate. "Our business is struggling," Dad continued. "The catering company. We lost 2 major clients, and the bank's breathing down our necks. We thought maybe we could partner. Use your name, your brand. It could save us." Silence. The kind of silence that hums louder than shouting. "Let me get this straight," I said finally. "You ignored my dream, mocked it, tried to destroy it, and now that yours is crumbling, you want me to fix it?" Dad shifted uncomfortably. "We're family," I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. "You only remember that word when it's convenient," I said. "When you need something." But where was family when I stood alone in an empty restaurant? Daniel spoke next, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "I know we don't deserve anything, but if you help us, even just lend your name, it could save dozens of jobs. People rely on this company. People relied on me too," I snapped. "And you left me to drown." "Claire," Mom whispered. "Please, we're begging you." I took a slow breath. Every muscle in my body screamed for me to walk out. But something deeper, colder, steadier kept me rooted. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, leaning forward. "I will not give you money. I will not lend you my name. I will not save you. Because saving you means stepping back into a story I outgrew a long time ago." "Then you're just going to let us fail?" Dad asked, his voice shaking with anger. "No," I said calmly. "You let you fail. Every decision that brought you here, you made it. Every bridge you burned, you lit the match." I stood, pushing my chair back. "We're done here." "Claire, please." Daniel started, but I cut him off. "Do you know what the hardest part of success is?" I asked, turning to face them one last time. "It's realizing that not everyone gets to come with you." And with that, I walked away. The story could have ended there. A clean, sharp, final break. But life has a way of adding one last twist. A week later, I was prepping for a private event, a charity dinner for young chefs from underfunded schools, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Can I help?" I turned. Daniel stood in the doorway, hands stuffed in his pockets, eyes tired but soft. "What are you doing here?" "I didn't come to ask for anything," he said. "I just wanted to volunteer. Wash dishes, chop onions, whatever." I studied him for a long moment. There was no arrogance this time. No excuses, just sincerity. "Why?" I asked. "Because I finally get it," he said. "I kept thinking you were angry because we hurt your feelings. But you're angry because we never showed up. And I can't change the past, but I can show up now." I didn't say yes right away. But I didn't throw him out either. I handed him an apron. He wasn't perfect. He chopped onions too big. He dropped a tray of plates. But he stayed. All night, until the last guest left. And when the kids came up to thank me, kids whose parents had told them dreams like theirs were impossible, I saw something shift in Daniel's eyes. "This," he said quietly, "is bigger than all of us." "Yeah," I said. "It is." The next morning, I found a letter slipped under the restaurant door. "Claire, I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness, but I'm proud of you, truly. Whether you let me be a part of your life again or not, I'll keep showing up, even if it's from a distance. Love, Daniel." I read it twice, then tucked it into the back of my recipe book, not because I forgave him, but because maybe, just maybe, he was starting to understand. And for the first time in a long time, the word family didn't feel like a chain. It felt like a choice. Weeks later, the charity event made headlines. "Chef Claire Mason feeds the future," the story read. Donations poured in, scholarships were funded, and kids who'd never set foot in a commercial kitchen before now had a path forward. The same critics who once called me too ambitious now called me a visionary. The same relatives who once laughed at my dream now watched from the sidelines, wondering how I'd done it. But the truth was simple. I didn't rise in spite of them. I rose because I finally stopped waiting for them to lift me. 1 year later, I woke up before dawn, the way I always did on launch days. The city was still sleeping, but my heart wasn't. It beat with the same wild rhythm it had the day I unlocked the doors to my very first restaurant. Except this time, everything was different. Today, we weren't opening a restaurant. We were opening a legacy. 3 locations, 2 cookbooks, a mentorship program for underprivileged culinary students. And now, the thing I'd once called impossible, my own culinary institute. The Mason School of Culinary Arts. The sign out front still felt unreal every time I saw it. My name, the name they once mocked, the dream they once dismissed, now carved in gold letters across the glass doors of a place that would outlive me. I walked the halls slowly, soaking it in. Stainless steel workstations, classrooms lined with knives and mixing bowls, walls covered with portraits of trailblazing chefs, many of them women, many of them people who had been told no their whole lives. And right in the center, above the main staircase, a quote I had chosen myself. They said I wasn't good enough, so I built a world where I was. I was adjusting the ribbon at the entrance when I heard someone behind me clear their throat. "Still allergic to sleep, huh?" I turned. Daniel stood there, holding 2 coffees. He looked older, softer, different. "Old habits," I said, taking the cup. "Today's the big day," he said, looking around. "You did it. You did it. Not we, not they. You." It was the first time anyone in my family had said it that way. "Thank you," I said quietly. "I've been thinking a lot," he continued. "About everything. About how I measured success by control, not by impact, and how you..." He looked around again, eyes landing on the student welcome packets stacked on the tables. "You measured it by who you lift up along the way." There was a pause. "I know you might never trust us again," he said. "But I hope you know, I'm proud to be your brother." Something in me loosened at that, a knot that had been there for years. "I'm proud of me too," I said with a small smile. At noon, the doors opened. Cameras flashed. Students poured in, some shy, some bold, all of them hungry for a chance. I gave a speech, not from a podium, but from the middle of the room, apron on, sleeves rolled up. "I built this place for the dreamers," I said. "For the kids told they were too loud, too ambitious, too much. For the ones who were told to be realistic. And for every person who's ever been made to feel small. This is your kitchen now." The room erupted in applause. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was proving anything. I was just being. After the ribbon cutting, a journalist from the New York Chronicle pulled me aside. "You know," she said, "most people's first success is the peak. But for you, it's like each chapter is bigger than the last. How do you keep going?" I thought about that question. Really thought about it. Then I answered, "Because I stopped chasing validation," I said, "and started chasing purpose." Later that evening, when the guests had gone and the lights were dim, I stood alone in the empty institute lobby. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to feel like loneliness, but now felt like peace. That's when I noticed the envelope sitting on the reception desk. My name, handwritten across the front. Inside was a letter. No signature, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. "Claire, we watched the broadcast today. You were extraordinary. I know we don't deserve a seat at your table, but if you ever decide there's room for us, we'll come not to take, but to support. Until then, we'll be cheering you on from the sidelines. Mom and Dad." I read it twice, then tucked it gently into my bag. Maybe one day I'd reply. Maybe I wouldn't. But either way, I was free. Weeks passed. The school flourished. Students began winning competitions, landing jobs in top restaurants, starting ventures of their own. And every time one of them called to say I made it, I felt that old wound heal a little more. One Friday afternoon, I was prepping for a guest lecture when a woman approached me in the hallway. Nervous, fidgeting with the strap of her purse. "Are you Chef Mason?" she asked. "I am." "My daughter's in your first-year class," she said. "She's been terrified she doesn't belong. She wanted to quit last month." I nodded, bracing myself. "But last night," the woman continued, voice trembling, "she told me something. She said, if Chef Mason could survive everything she went through and still become her, maybe I can become me." I felt tears prick my eyes. Not because it was sad, but because it was full circle. "Tell her," I said softly. "She already belongs." That night, after the last class had ended and the campus had gone still, I walked into the teaching kitchen and turned off the lights. The room was bathed in moonlight, silver and soft, and for a moment, I saw it all flash before me like a movie. The empty tables at my first grand opening, the fake Yelp reviews, the smear campaign, the betrayal, the loneliness, the rise, the second location, the first student who called me chef, the first mother who said thank you. And then I saw her, the version of me who once stood crying alone in a restaurant no one came to. I walked up to her in my mind, wiped her tears and whispered, "We made it." A year later, an invitation arrived. Gold foil, engraved letters. Daniel Mason, James Beard Award finalist. He wanted me at the ceremony. This time, I didn't laugh. I didn't shred it or ignore it. I put on a dress, showed up, and clapped the loudest when they called his name. Because forgiveness wasn't about forgetting what they did. It was about refusing to let it define me anymore. And as I stepped outside into the night air, surrounded by students, friends, and a future that once felt impossible, I finally understood something. The best revenge isn't success. It isn't silence. It isn't even forgiveness. It's building a life so full, so beautiful, so yours, that the people who tried to break you don't even recognize the person you became. I looked up at the city skyline, lights glittering like 1,000 tiny stars, and smiled. Because once upon a time no one showed up to my dream, now the whole world couldn't look away.